Welcome to the Bowhunting 101 video. This is a complement to the columns that I write in the Peterson's Bowhunting magazine. And I recently wrote one about scouting backwards. And I really got into the subject of how tempting it is when you're out for a walk to focus on deer sign and really almost forget about everything else, looking for the scrapes and the rubs and the trails. That's where you think the bucks are going to be when the next fall comes. Well, the problem with that is they may be there, but you may spook them when you go to hunt them. And what I tried to stress in that column was the importance of scouting backwards. Look for your entry and exit routes first, and then find the best locations that you can find near those where you can hunt without the deer knowing that you're coming and going. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm just out for a little walk, and I'm just going to point out a few things to you as we go through here. Don't think in terms of where do I want my stand. Think in terms of how do I get in and out without the deer knowing it, and then where is the best location near that entry and exit route where I have at least a decent chance of having a buck come past within bow range. So let's go for a little walk. Right here in this spot, there's a natural opening that's growing up to clover. It's not a spot that I've planted anytime recently, so it's sort of a wild clover, natural food plot. Right away you're thinking, there's going to be for sure some deer that stop and feed in here. Great spot to consider, as a potential location for a stand site. But once again, how are we going to get here? Now we're starting to make a little bit of progress. There's a really deep ditch right here off to my left, and this thing runs all the way up to the road. And I've used it before. I knew it was here, so I was cheating a little bit when I took you in this direction. But I've used this ditch to come from the road all the way down and up onto this little knob right here across the ditch from where I'm at. There's a good little bedding area up there. But if you tried to walk down any other route to get in there, whether you walked right down that ridge to the bedding area or you walk down this side on the open ridge top here, the deer on all sides are going to see you coming. For an afternoon hunt, you'd be dead. You'd never get in here without the deer knowing it. The ones close by would spook and they would take the ones further out away. So every deer in that whole area would know that you were there before you ever even got into your tree stand. Same thing with at the end of legal shooting time. You don't want to have a stand where you have to walk across open fields in order to get back to your vehicle, because that's more or less where the deer are going to be. They work their way out of the timber into the more open areas. Typically the trend is from the cover in the evenings into the open, and in the mornings it's the opposite, from the open towards the cover. So this one would be an easy spot if you're hunting it in the evening. Drop down into that ditch and just skedaddle your way right up to the road. So right away I've found one really good entry-exit route. Let me keep walking. I'm standing on a deer trail right now. It's heading into this little ditch crossing. There's another one coming in. This definite funnel, a bottleneck of trails leading to this spot where it's easy for the deer to cross that ditch. Spots like that are what you're looking for as a bow hunter. Anything you can find that narrows down the trails into a small gap so that you can cover the whole thing with a bow, that's going to increase your odds for success. Obviously, if you can cover multiple deer trails from one stand, that's way better than sitting someplace where you can only cover one. So let's walk up here a little bit further and look at this. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 trails all coming together right here. You can see one that's just beaten down going across this crossing. There's a pretty good little ditch there, and the deer won't cross that if they don't have to. If they have to jump or they have to climb down and then up the other steep bank, they're more likely to take that path of least resistance, especially if it doesn't take them out of their way too much. So this little crossing right here is just a killer spot. So the trick is, same thing we've talked about before, is there a way to hunt this? Is there an entry and exit route? Well, now if you pan over, you can see I've got a blind down in here. The blind is in this spot because of the fact that it's down in the valley. So you get the swirling wind, and there's no way I could sit in a tree stand and not have my scent scattered all over the place down in here. So I can get in that blind, I can close the windows, and I can pretty much bottle up my scent inside there. So if I've got a blind there, you have to assume that I must have some way of getting in here without the deer knowing it. So if we'll walk a little bit further, I'll show you. If you've got a ditch crossing, you probably have a ditch. So here's the ditch, and it runs right next to the blind, heading up the hill. This one goes up to the road also, more or less, you know, almost to the road. So I can get out of the vehicle, drop off, get into this ditch and walk this ditch all the way down and jump into that blind. So I don't have the deer on either side seeing me from very far. Getting in and out, it's the biggest part about success. So I've got a pretty heavily used scrape here. This is always exciting to find buck sign like this, the size of the hood of a car. People always talk about, oh, it's bathtub sized scrape. And yes it is, but we're sitting right here in this valley, right out in the wide open. No real chance of getting close to this without the deer knowing that we're coming and going. So once again, we found a spot that might get hit by a lot of bucks, but we can't hunt it. If we do, we're just going to educate too many deer. So the real lesson in this is you're better off hunting marginal sign, or the best sign that you can come up with excellent entry and exit, than you are to hunt the absolute best sign that you can find with marginal entry and exit. Keeping that element of surprise in your favor is more important than sitting over the very best sign in your hunting area. I'm a little bit further down the valley now. This is a spot that most years I'll plant to some type of a food plot. I like to have these little pockets like this to hunt. The deer, you know, those small fields like this are just little killer spots. But they're not always easy to hunt. In this one in particular, if we had to come in off the top of the hill, the what you'd call maybe the obvious route, the road is up there. If we walked in that way, we'd be walking right through the deer coming in here for an evening hunt. That's not going to work. So if you look over to this side, now you can see the blind that I hunt out of. I like to hunt blinds in these valleys, like I said, just to get away from any risk of the swirling wind. But if you look past it, and we'll go for a little quick walk over there and I'll show you, but there's a creek that runs the full length of this big valley. And it's not a ditch. I mean, it's a full-blown creek that runs water almost all year round. We can park way down in that direction, clear probably 3/4 of a mile away, and walk up that creek the whole way. If we hunt it with the wind coming from this direction, you don't get a whole lot of swirling because it's more or less blowing down the valley. So we can work our way up, then follow a little ditch almost to the base of this stand or the blind and climb right up the ladder and get in. So we've got this entry and exit route for this valley. The tricky part, of course, is figuring out where to hunt along the length of that valley, but this is a no-brainer because normally there's food here, and if you look at it, it really narrows down. The field is wide, it's narrow here, and then it widens back out again. So any deer that are working their way down this valley are going to give me a bow shot because this valley is only 40, or this field is only 40 yards wide right here. So that's why the blind is where it is. And the other reason it's there is because I've got a way to get to it and from it without the deer that are in this area knowing that I'm hunting them. You can see the ditch behind me that runs all the way down to that creek. So I can walk the creek up, get into this little ditch, and follow that ditch right to the base of the blind, climb the ladder, and I'm in. And I've had deer that were out in these fields that didn't even know when I was coming or going. As long as you're careful and not making a lot of noise and you sneak in there as quietly and as carefully as you can get to and from that spot, even with deer, you know, fairly close by. The reason is, of course, you're down below their line of sight. You know, anything you can do to stay out of sight, to cover your scent trail when you're walking in and out, and to muffle the noise that you make. So you get all those advantages from using creeks, to a lesser extent ditches, and you know, any kind of natural, some places obviously you don't have these type of terrain features, so you've got natural cover like fence rows or, you know, low spots in fields where it's grown up into weeds. Something where you've got some cover that you can hide behind as you're coming and going to your tree stand. Look for those things first. Don't look for the sign first. Look for the entry and exit routes, and then find the best sign and the best stand locations near those entry and exit routes, and you're going to do a lot better this coming season. Well, I appreciate you joining me. I'll see you right back here in another month for the next video in the Bowhunting 101 series.